Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex on the south side. Bob Pompiani, soon to be joined by Missy Matthews as we get ready for a Tomlin Tuesday and a press conference after a bye week, a week which saw all three teams in the division win games. Things are tight in the AFC North, and the Steelers will head out west to take on the Rams at SoFi Stadium Sunday at 4:05. Coming off a big win against the Ravens, a come-from-behind win. They got some big plays in special teams with Miles Killebrew. Defensively, Joey Porter Jr. on Odell Beckham Jr., and that set up the game-winning touchdown pass from Pickett to Pickens. A lot of big plays at a lot of critical times. So the Steelers are 3-2, looking to improve upon that against a Rams team that got level at 3-3, although they suffered 2 losses to their top running backs. And therefore, you wonder what Sean McVay may do. They have 2 dynamic receivers, of course. Cooper Kupp is back and healthy. Puka Nacua has been outstanding as a 5th-round pick. Mike Tomlin is ready to roll upstairs. Let's head you there for today's Tomlin Tuesday.
Good afternoon. Really excited about getting back in the competition, coming off of our bye week. The usual bye week business for us, an opportunity for self-analysis in all 3 phases, what we do well, what we don't do well, strategic things, how we divide the labor up. We went through those things with a fine-tooth comb as a staff, spent some time addressing some of those things, some of the more significant things with players in the form of the 2 practice opportunities that we had during that time. And then we spent some time kind of looking ahead, not only in terms of the games that are upcoming like the one this week, but also just kind of trends in the game to have a little bit of a global perspective about some things that are going on, where we stack up our place in it, if you will, all in an effort to provide the proper focus in terms of areas that we need to improve. I think that's a reasonable expectation as you come out of a bye. That opportunity for reflection and self-analysis should be a springboard for better performance, for better strategy, for better division of labor. I know that's our intention as we sit here today. But that also goes along with preparation for the next challenge. And really that's kind of where we are as I sit here today. But before I get into the LA Rams, I'll talk about some health-related things because that's also a big component of the bye week, man. It's always a great opportunity to sort some things out from a health standpoint, to push some people back toward participation. It was for us. We had 2 guys that are on IR that are now in the 21-day window for return, Deontay Johnson and Anthony McFarland. They'll be working in a variety of capacities at various appropriate levels. We'll let the quality of that participation and the amount of that participation, coupled with conditioning, being our guide in terms of activation or no this week. It's a week-to-week thing. You get a 21-day window, but you get opportunities at the end of the week. We'll be assessing those guys for inclusion or not. We got some guys who had lesser injuries, who appear to be poised for various levels of participation as we prepare tomorrow. Guys in the offensive line like James Daniels and Dan Moore, tight end Pratt Firemouth, DeMarvin Leal, Presley Harvin. So we're excited about the relative health of our group as we get singular focused on this next opportunity. Now about the Rams, got a lot of respect for this group. They're well coached in all 3 phases. They got top-tier talent in all phases that you need to be highly aware of. I'll start with their offense. Coach McVay does a heck of a job of mixing both the run and the pass, changing launch points, play pass, misdirection pass. He always has done a nice job of mixing it up in that regard and generally staying a step ahead. In the on-field extension of him, Matt Stafford is experienced and really good, pinpoint accurate, can deliver the ball just about anywhere on the field. He does a really nice job of utilizing all his eligibles. Nacua has gotten a lot of attention at the early portions of the season. Was getting a lot of volume. But oftentimes, as I say, one man's misfortune is another man's opportunity, and he really sees that opportunity. But now they also have Cooper Kupp back, and we know the relationship there. And so we got some challenging things to do from an eligible standpoint. The tight end Higbee does a nice job. Tutu Atwell, Coach McVay, Stafford, they really do a nice job of spreading the ball around. They got a capable running game. They've already shown over the course of the year to be able to utilize different backs. Williams has emerged over the course of the year. If you'd asked me a month ago, I'd have thought Akers would have been their guy. So I'd imagine they're capable of overcoming any short-term issues that they have at the running back position. They've been able to display that to this point anyway. They're a good systematic group in that regard. They can run the ball. They run the ball with a variety of people. They're good game planners in that regard. It's going to be a challenging day for us in terms of minimizing what they're capable of doing. On the other side of the ball, Raheem Morris, man, I've worked with and known for a long time. He's a fundamentalist. He's always going to be sound. He's going to be aggressive in his approach. They do a really good job of keeping a lid on it. On the back end, he's a secondary coach by trade. They play high-volume things or high-tendency things very well, whether it's global things or whether it's things that we do. Obviously, we better be wary of Aaron Donald and what he's capable of. I'm not going to get into the details of his resume. You know it. 3-time Player of the Year, 7-time first-team All-Pro. He needs no endorsement from me. We better do a good job of minimizing any additions to that resume in this stadium this weekend. And obviously, you work your tail off to minimize his impact on the game, but I imagine that week in and week out, everyone does that, but he still does what he does. And so we're preparing with an edge in that regard. Got a lot of respect for what he and they are capable of. They mix a lot of things, fire zones, bogus pressures. They come home some. Some are done just in an effort to ensure one-on-ones for talented people like Aaron Donald. And so minimizing him is a difficult task coupled with the schematics. But that's what we're here for. That's why we're working with an edge. That's why we're excited about getting back into this thing and traveling into an environment like we're going to travel into. There's growth associated with that, but our preference is to grow while winning. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, you mentioned some trends in the game relative to your team and how they might be impacted. Any in particular?
Yeah, they are, but I'm not going to talk openly about them, to be quite honest with you. On a Tuesday when teams are preparing and putting together plans, it doesn't behoove me to talk strategic things in great detail.
Mike, what did your analysis of the offense show you over the first 5 weeks, and what do you need to improve?
Man, I think we have talked about this a lot, haven't we? We can get better in all areas, and those are our intentions, whether it's strategy or schematics, whether it's how we divide the labor up or technique relative to our positions, and that's been our agenda. We realize that we've absorbed some negativity based on performance. We're men enough to absorb that negativity and stay singularly focused on what's required to change it, and that is work. We're not interested in assigning blame or making excuses. We're just singularly focused on getting better. And we're going to continue to do that, and this Sunday is an opportunity to show progress in that regard.
When it comes to the self-scouting that you guys did, the self-analysis that you guys did, was there anything that was revealed to you specifically about Kenny's play that can maybe improve or ways that you can tweak it to get better in the second half?
Certainly, but again, it doesn't behoove me to outline it in great detail in environments like this. Rest assured that every team in the National Football League delves into self-analysis during bye weeks, and they comb through it and they look critical at every component of what it is that they do, whether it's strategy or schematics, the division of labor or the development of individual players. And so we didn't do anything cutting edge or unique in that regard. Just rest assured we did our due diligence.
Mike, if Dan Moore's healthy, does he start at left tackle?
That's a big if. We got some work ahead of us. He'll be given an opportunity to show his progress over the course of the week, and we'll make that decision at the appropriate time. behoove us to make hypothetical statements at the early portions of the week. He looked pretty good yesterday. We'll see where the week leads us.
Do you have a policy on players coming back from injury, recapturing starters?
It's on a case-by-case basis, and it has to be. I want to be fair to everyone. If they're quick learners and so forth, you don't want to exclude them. If they're a veteran player that doesn't require a lot of physical reps, you don't want to exclude them, et cetera. And so over the years, I've learned to handle it on a case-by-case basis.
How do you balance, Mike, a rookie learning in the game versus from the bench in that perspective? How do you figure out what's the best course of action?
Very carefully. No, every venue is an opportunity for learning for a young player. Classroom, practices, watching others, and then ultimately playing yourself. We're not interested in excluding any of the teach tools because different people learn differently. And we're trying to accelerate the growth process for all parties involved. And so I don't know that we view any of those things any differently. And when you're a young player, just about every opportunity, whether it's physical work or watching others or on your feet or butt in seats in the classroom, is an opportunity for get better and growth.
With Broderick's learning style, how did you feel like what did you feel like he gained from starting in the last game?
The in-helmet perspective of play that you can't get anywhere else but playing. But he hasn't been deficient in learning in any of the other venues. And so it's just a process and opportunity.
I was going to ask something similar, but through the lens of where Joey Porter Jr. is in that context. Is he further down the path now where he might be closer to getting starters time?
I think with each week they all are. And so there are several variables at play. It's what it is that they do and the quality in which they do it, but it's also the opportunity. And such is always the case in team play. Things and decisions don't happen in a vacuum. You can be somewhat pleased with the progress of a player in terms of the direction that they're moving, but the opportunity has to be there. And so we challenge all of these guys to not be patient. This is not a patient person's business. It doesn't behoove them to be patient. We ask them to work while they wait for their opportunity and then put their readiness on display. And to this point, some of the guys that you're asking about, Broderick Jones, Joey Porter Jr., have done a really good job of that. And so we'll wait for continued opportunities and increased opportunities for them and check their progress as we move forward.
Mike, if Deontay Johnson can play, what is it that he brings to the offense that you missed without him?
Expert route running. He's a route runner, vertical, non-vertical. He can create separation at break points. That is his distinguishing trait, but that is no secret.
Mike, do you see anything in Pickett's game? He's very good oftentimes at the end of games and less consistent leading up to that.
He doesn't shrink in those weighty moments. He's a competitor. Those are some of the things that really attracted him to us in the draft process. We saw it next door at Pitt. I'm not surprised when it reveals itself again. Man, it's just innate in some people. When things get thick, some people shrink. Some people smile in the face of it, and it brings out the best of them. I've always thought it brought out the best in him.
Have you explored any unique opportunities to get that out of him earlier? Like first
Every day of my life.
What do you think of the progress of your middle linebacker group?
I like some of the plays that they're making, some splash plays. I think with each passing week, they're getting better at some real fundamental things, how we divide the labor up and the understanding of how we utilize their talents, the communication that comes with being a second-level player in the middle of our defense, and particularly in home game environments. I can't say that enough. Home game environments are challenging for opposing offenses. They're also extremely challenging for home defenses. We got some new guys, particularly in central communication positions. And I think with each opportunity at home, it's felt better. It gets better in game, but it's also felt better at the beginning. And hopefully that continues because we got to communicate and play with great, fluidity and connectedness on defense at home.
Mike, you mentioned that challenge in communicating with defense when the crowd is loud. What kind of things have you guys found that's effective in communicating when it's so loud like that?
Cupping, in communicating, hand signals, working in environments that simulate the game day environment. So we use crowd noise, but none of that is unique. I'm sure the 31 others do similar things.
Mike, how do you explain George Pickens' development with Deontay out? Did you see him take a step forward, considering him all out of the expectations?
That guy is taking a step forward every day of his professional life. If you want to frame it in that way and make a story about it because Deontay has missed some games, have at it. But he is a second-year player, and it is reasonable to expect him to get better each and every week because of it's his second lap around the track and exposure to the National Football League. So he is getting better, period. Not because of anyone else's presence or lack thereof.
Mike, when you talk about divisional labor, how do you weigh a player's resume, the history they have with you versus how they're doing in the moment? And I think specifically the running back position, Jalen and Najee's numbers are pretty similar, but Najee's obviously been the guy since he got here.
Individually, decisions are made by guys like me day in and day out in this business. Some of it is very black and white informational. Some of it is gut oriented. Some of it is a mix of the two. And that's how it gets done. So I try not to do it specifically with a cookie cutter because you miss opportunities to get better. There are variables and unique variables in all circumstances that require analysis. And so I'm comfortable enough in my skin and in my position that I don't make cookie cutter decisions. I view them on an individual basis, and I've outlined in great detail that both guys are going to be significant components of what we do and have been and will continue to be, and how we choose to divide the labor up on a game in and game out basis is continually evolving.
What about Keanu Benton, and specifically last game? How do you thought he played with a little more snap?
Again, that's a young guy that's utilizing all his avenues to getting better. The opportunity avenue has been increased for him because of Cam Hayward's injury, and I think with more exposure, he's playing more consistent and getting more comfortable, and so I'm excited about the continued trajectory of that.
Mike, when you mentioned that Deontay's expert route running is something he adds to the offense, how much can that help Kenny Pickett going, especially early in a game?
Very much.
Mike, you mentioned that often it's other things you see that present opportunities for these young guys. What was it that presented the opportunity for Joey against the Ravens? What were you looking for in terms of maybe a spark or something different there?
Evolution in him and us. Like I mentioned, with each passing week, we gain an understanding of what particularly the young guys are capable of. We're gaining a better understanding, particularly the early portions of the year, about how to best divide our labor up in an effort to win a game. And so we did against the Baltimore Ravens what we thought was necessary to win that game. And we'll continue to do so.
Sorry, Mike. The last time Cooper Kupp was held without a catch was here way back in 2019. Obviously, he's become quite a good player since then. What are some of the keys to minimizing a guy with his sort of particular combination of size and knowledge and ability?
Man, 2019 was a football life ago. I think golf was his quarterback. And so, I'll answer your question without referring to 2019. It's very difficult to minimize a player of his caliber. And it's, whether it's a receiver or whether it's a talented rusher like Aaron Donald or whether it's a talented veteran quarterback like Stafford, man, usually it's multiple things, and usually you're working to minimize as opposed to shut out. Significant players find a way to make plays. Week in and week out, people block TJ with two people, and week in and week out, TJ makes plays, for example. And so that's just the nature of this thing when you're dealing with quality players. I'm sure game in and game out, people put two people on LeBron in basketball, but he's still LeBron. And so that's what elite athletes do. And I don't think any of us in this business are surprised by elite athletes doing what elite athletes do.
Generally, this time of year, your teams have been quite good in recency. Last year's a little bit of an outlier, the quarterback change later by and all that. But generally, this time of year, your teams have been really good and built up good records. Is that because you tend to find your identity about 4 or 5 weeks in? Or what has led to that, and does this team have that in it?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I really don't think a lot about comparing this one to other ones. There's so many different variables in terms of the players and the challenges that this journey holds for us. We have the experience of previous journeys, but those are my experiences, not this collective's experience. And so I better be continually better based on my experience. I better apply that experience to this group and this journey. Sometimes it's things that are similar. Sometimes it's things that are different. That's just the nature of it. That's why I love it. It's always a challenge. It never gets stale. There's urgency every day of our professional lives. We better be working to get better, to find that traction that allows us to be a consistent winner, to be significant as the road gets narrow. That's what all 32 are aspiring to do, I imagine, at this time of year.
You guys have given up the 8th most yards to receivers in the NFL so far this year. What does your secondary have to do better to limit those opportunities?
I'm not concerned about obscure stats like that at this juncture. Keep watching. Seriously. Like you can, I'm really not. Our objective is to win, and if we're going to win consistently, we'll address all little tidbits and things of that nature. It'll get cleaned up with a bigger volume to study, with a bigger volume of tape and games. And so we're just working on doing what it is that we need to do to win this week. And if we do those things enough continually, we'll address all of those tidbits.
Mike, you talk about that going from year 1 to year 2, the step that players at all positions need to make. With Kenny specifically, where does he appear to have improved in your eyes versus where he was at the end of last season?
Guys, we've talked about this repeatedly. He's comfortable in his shoes. The unofficial things that come with his job, he's probably more cognizant of. He probably has more latitude to be cognizant of it because he's more comfortable with the surface level things: alignment, assignment, communication, getting in and out of the huddle, things of that nature, pace of play. And so oftentimes experience provides you a broader view of what it is that you're doing that allows you to touch more people and do things in a more detailed way. And that's probably reflective of him and the quarterback position transitioning from 1 to 2.
Mike, you guys didn't have any offensive linemen who missed starts last year. This year, you guys have dealt with that and been able to win games even when that's been the case. How have you seen that group respond to that kind of adversity?
I still think that we're writing that story. Our ability to absorb the twists and turns of the season, the challenges, the player availability, the lack thereof. Man, we're just getting started, man. Don't get me wrong, I'm not hoping for adversity, but I'm just prepared for it. It behooves me to be prepared for it. And so I mean what I say when I say one man's misfortune is another man's opportunity. We got a collection of professionals. We don't discount anyone. As a matter of fact, we work with an edge in an effort to prepare everyone because we know their opportunities are coming.
A couple questions ago, Tim mentioned the word identity. Does this team, in your opinion, have an identity yet, or is this kind of an always evolving process here?
We do in some ways, but we're evolving in others, and so it's an ongoing process.
Anyone else? Mike Minka doesn't have an interception, just has 2 passes defended this year. Is that, in your eyes, other teams just simply going away from him? And if that's the case, are you okay with that trade-off, or do you need to have more splash from him?
Minka's going to make his plays. There are blocks of games in the past, maybe where TJ is not getting sacks. TJ's going to get sacks. Minka's going to make splash plays. That's what all pros do.
You guys have used him a lot more in the slot in the early part of this year. Do you guys see that as something that's going to continue all season long, or has that been matchup specific?
We expect him to be Minka no matter where we utilize him, to be quite honest with you. We've moved him around in the past as well.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that's Mike Tomlin, Bob Pompiani, now joined by Missy Matthews. And Missy, let's talk about some of the stuff, because if you look at the depth chart, things remain the same. It is only Tuesday. Things have to, play out the rest of this week. But at this point, Dan Moore Jr. is still listed ahead of Broderick Jones. Now he's coming back from an injury, and as Mike Tomlin said, that will pretty much determine what happens on Sunday in LA.
Yeah, the bye week coming at a good time, especially for the offensive line. James Daniels also missed that game, but those are 2 of the guys, along with Pat Freiermuth, DeMarvin Leal, and Presley Harvin, who missed the game against the Ravens. They're going to start practicing again a little bit more as the week goes on to see if they're available for Sunday.
We look back at last bye week. Last year came after a 2-6 start, but they made a lot of changes, and it resulted in a 7-2 record the rest of the way. This is a little earlier, but there's still things that need to be cleaned up, and Mike Tomlin, addressed that answer when he said we have a lot of work to do on offense. What do you think the number one thing is? Because if you look at the time of possession, it's not that good, and third down conversions have not been that good either.
Well, I think for the Steelers offense, you're potentially getting Deontay Johnson and Anthony McFarland back, guys we have not seen since the preseason. So I think that's huge, not just for Kenny Pickett, but for the whole offense. Maybe we get George Pickens more one-on-one with 18 back. But I think maybe the division of labor and just looking at what worked well for them or what is something that just is not working, plays, whatever, getting rid of those and maybe trying to revamp that. They only had 2 practices, one last week. They had a bonus day yesterday. So the official week for them in terms of their practices begin tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't think it's going to be any wholesale changes, but there's definitely things, like you said, they can improve on.
I think that's a good point with Deontay Johnson. I've always looked at him that way too, as one of the best route runners and a guy who is capable of going over the middle, getting some extra yards, which could and should help Kenny Pickett. We have much more to cover as we continue here with this Tomlin Tuesday. We'll go up to 1 o'clock and break down not only what's going on with the Steelers, but also the Rams, who won last week after a bad first half. They came back and erased it all and beat Arizona. That's all yet to come right here on KDKA Plus and Steeler Digital platforms. Thanks for joining us.
Calling all football enthusiasts. Immerse yourself in the captivating world of the Steelers at the new Steelers Hall of Honor Museum located inside Acrisure Stadium. Explore over 10,000 square feet of history where interactive videos, music, and engaging exhibits await. Feel the thrill of the broadcast booth as you make your mark on a historic Steelers play call. Plus, get up close to the iconic Super Bowl rings, game-worn uniforms, and priceless artifacts. Plan your visit today at Steelers.com/museum.
Do you feel like it took maybe 5 weeks or so for this group to really gel on the field as well as you would hope they would?
No, just for me, it's more the excitement of being at the top of the AFC North and seeing the guys go out there as a defensive unit and playing really hard and doing whatever it takes to ensure ourselves a victory.
How much are these guys in line with exactly the kind of mentality that the AFC North needs? It seems like Landon, Cole, Quan are all, even Mark, are all pretty no-nonsense guys who want to hit stuff that's moving in front of them.
Yeah, I think we just got a group of guys that they understand what it takes to play in this division, and they're willing to do whatever it takes. They're not going to back down from any challenges, whether I challenge or whether Coach T challenges them or whether our opponents challenge them. We got a good group of guys that come to work every day, and they put in the work, and they go into the game understanding that they're prepared and that they're confident. And they're going to do whatever it takes to win.
How have you been able to keep, three guys that have started in the NFL, content with roles that they have and kind of balancing the playing time between them?
I just say more hats off to them and their maturity levels. Yeah. It's because they played in the league for so long that they understand that everybody has a skill set that we can use to our advantage as a defensive unit, and everybody gets ready for every role, and we just let it roll. And guys understand that they make the best of what they get, and they don't worry about what they don't get. And they give us the effort that it takes to win ball games.
Is that something that could change on a week-to-week basis depending on matchups and whatever teams you're?
No, it just, we just let it roll. Yeah. It's just by series, by field position, by whatever. We just kind of, everybody's ready at all times.
How have you found managing that, Aaron? Has it been difficult, trying to work for those strengths and weaknesses? Or?
Nah, you just get everybody ready to play every snap. That's what you do.
Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the Acrisure Stadium shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
We can get better in all areas, and those are our intentions, whether it's strategy or schematics, whether it's how we divide the labor up or technique relative to our positions, and that's been our agenda. We realize that we've absorbed some negativity based on performance, We're men enough to absorb that negativity and stay singularly focused on what's required to change it, and that is work. We're not interested in assigning blame or making excuses. We're just singularly focused on getting better. And we're going to continue to do that, and this Sunday is an opportunity to show progress in that regard.
All right, welcome back. And you would think that that would certainly increase with the number of people potentially coming back. Two very good players have been out, Pat Freiermuth, Deontay Johnson. When in there, multiple options occur for Kenny Pickett. And I think that's been missing over the last 5 games.
And I think we saw the reset they had. It was a later bye in 2022. Obviously, there was also a quarterback change that took place. But even under Coach Tomlin, the Steelers are 12-4 after the bye. So something about just having that week off, whether it's resting, regrouping, something works there. And they're 6-3 on the road, heading out to LA before we get to come home for 3 straight games. But I do think, this will be a tall task for them as they face the Rams on Sunday.
Yeah, you can see some of the stuff going on here with Kenny Pickett. There have been a lot of throws to the sideline, checkdowns, what have you. And I think, again, with guys like Johnson and Freiermuth, that should open up the middle of the field, which they haven't really attacked. I thought we'd see more of that. Maybe that's one of the things Mike Tomlin was talking about, Missy, that they have not utilized that portion of the field. And when you do that, it does make things easier on the outside as well.
Yeah, Pat Freiermuth, obviously a candidate for that as well, but even Darnell Washington, somebody I would like to see get involved a little bit more in the pass game, especially if they're able to get down to the red zone. That's just something that we saw on a daily basis at training camp. In 7 shots, he's an easy target, a little bit higher than everybody else. So will be interesting to see the tweaks that we see, especially as you said, with the addition of guys who have not been healthy.
You know, it's interesting. You look at last year and the year before, Najee Harris out of the backfield was very good on, picking up passes, running with them. And now it seems like Jaylen Warren has incorporated that into his role, especially on 3rd down. But wouldn't you like to see more Najee in the flat early in situations? Not necessarily 3rd down, but I'm talking about 1st and 2nd down, because he seems, a couple years ago, he had a lot of receptions for a lot of yards in that role.
And then he has the angry yak yards that we see, the hurtling of people, all things that when you think back to especially his rookie season and even the second half of last year, like you said.
And one of the things that was a problem last year at the bye week was conversions on 3rd down. It's still a little bit of a problem, and it needs to be, and I think that's one of the things that happens. If you extend drives, you not only, give the defense of the other team more work, but you're also conserving time for your own defense. And I think sometimes they're on the field a little bit too long.
Yeah, and I think it has gotten better every week. You go back to, week 1 against San Francisco, things didn't look pretty. It does feel like some steps were taken back in the game in Houston, but it does feel like, especially when you win against a division rival in the Ravens, able to be 3-2 heading into your bye. They, of course, won yesterday, so now they're 4-2. But just good to see that you're able to make tweaks and changes while you're winning.
And it's amazing, last game they played against the Ravens, not much after 3 quarters, and suddenly it took a block punt by Miles Killebrew to get things going. Nobody has a knack for doing that more than him, and it just seemed to change the energy of that game. You were on the field. I'm sure you felt it there. The big play also after the turnover by Gunnar Olszewski, what Joey Porter Jr. did. Those are plays that if they're not made, you don't get a chance to throw the ball 41 yards to George Pickens.
Yeah, Acrisure Stadium was definitely rocking. I don't think it's hard for Steelers fans to get excited and get into the game when it's going well, when the Ravens are in town. Nobody likes them. So it was really good to see, and it just felt like all 3 phases, complementary football. Coach Tomlin talks about that all the time. It was good to see it work in a winning fashion.
Yeah, and here we are with Killebrew. Just has this ability, and you hear him talk about it. It's all film study, which I imagine that's a huge part of it. You got to know what these teams are doing to figure out little tendencies. He came up the middle on that play, and originally I thought that was a touchdown by Rodney Williams because it looked like his elbows were down.
Yeah, Hot Rod, Alfredo Roberts, the tight ends coach, said, earlier last week during the bye when he spoke to the media that, he was hoping it was a touchdown, that he started to well up a little bit. He was so excited for him. But Hot Rod, as they call him, he's one of those guys that we saw a lot in the preseason.
Right, he did. And that was an opportunity. They got a safety, but it did change the complexion of that game. We also found it interesting, the play to Pickens, because Baltimore does this a lot. Well, they will challenge receivers. There's no Johnson. There's no Freiermuth. You would have thought, even though Marlon Humphrey's a very good player, one-on-one with George Pickens, he had just come back from an injury, and that was an opportunity that they seized. They went for right after him, which I was a little surprised, only because it was Humphrey.
But as Coach Tomlin said following that win, they have an appetite for going cover zero there in that circumstance. But again, credit to Kenny Pickett, credit to George Pickens to be able to recognize that, implement it quickly, and for it to work. And obviously it was very much needed. It just felt like, especially touchdowns have been hard to come by the beginning half of this season.
Yeah, and Pickens just has this ability to go up. Anytime you have one-on-one coverage, I would imagine I would be tempted to do it all the time because he has those big hands that come away with the ball. You can see it right here. And not much as far as bad coverage there originally, but that pass was just so perfectly placed that Humphrey had no chance.
Yeah, and I think, he was able to turn his head. Marlon wasn't, and he stepped on the gas, got a little bit of separation, and that's all you needed, and he was in the end zone.
And you would expect that George Pickens and some of the stuff that's going on in his stat list is going to increase in the second half of this season. They certainly need it. We'll see what happens. As far as the LA Rams are concerned, it's a defense that starts with Aaron Donald. They're going to have to deal with that component and the fact that he normally wins one-on-one matchups. So I would imagine the Steelers are going to have to figure that out with double teams right up the middle.
Yeah, somebody that Coach Tomlin knows very well, as you said, but especially with so many injuries happening on the offensive line, you're going to want to solidify, hopefully sooner rather than later, who's playing and the game plan in terms of protection there.
All right, we'll talk more about the Rams when we come back. Steelers getting ready for a trip out west, and then it is 3 straight home games, a Thursday night game in there as well. Right after Jacksonville comes to town, it's Tennessee. So we'll talk a little bit about what lies ahead when we continue right here on KDK Plus and Steeler digital platforms. This is a Tomlin Tuesday, the Mike Tomlin press conference.
Gear up with game day necessities at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline gear, jerseys, terrible towels, memorabilia, and custom exclusives directly from the team. You can also gear up online at shop.steelers.com.
Yeah, where would you like to see improvement? Well, obviously, we've given up a couple big run plays, which really skews your run stats, but if they're there, they're there. And so we got to get those off our tape. And we've got to make sure that when we do get the run down, we're getting that thing down. They're not rushing for over 4 yards a carry. And because I think we're close, but we're not there yet. So until we get there where we want to be, then we've got to continue to work at that. So that run defense is really the biggest thing. I think we've cut down on the big plays, big pass plays. I know last year at this time, when we hit the break last year, we had way too many. So I feel good about where we are. Those are always areas that you got to do better.
We saw a little bit of Joey outside and Pat in the slot. I know you've been kind of having a plan with Joey and how much but is that the only thing I guess you've been waiting for to do more of that? Is just when Joey kind of felt like he's ready for more of those reps? Serving any hesitation about Pat going inside?
No hesitation about Pat going inside. And really what we've been doing is allowing Joey to earn his reps and earn the time. And, as he earns it, through the things he does in practice and the things he does in the game, then he sees more during the game. And I think that's what you're starting to see. He's starting to get it. He's starting to grow, starting to get better. As a young guy, as they always do, there's growth at this time of the year. And so he's playing right.
Can the same be said for Keanu Benton?
Absolutely. Keanu has really been growing and playing, and he's shown some position flexibility, not just on the nose. You saw him play a little bit of 4 technique this last week, and so we like where he's been as well.
Not the about a third of the way in the season, almost. How do you do the math now? A little more than a quarter of the way of the season.
I know. I don't like when they got 17.
Your inside line, to do a position group like overhaul, which you guys did this offseason. Everybody, and then no one comes during camp even who's hopping and moving here a little bit late. How do you kind of evaluate where that position group is, and is there growth there? Is there still meshing? Are there still veterans?
I think they're getting better every week, and I thought last week was probably as a unit their best week together. You felt them. They were physical. They were fast. They made some splash plays. They were all over the field as a unit. And that's really what we, kind of what we envision.
Experience the legacy of the Steelers like never before. Step into the Steelers Hall of Honor Museum at Acrisure Stadium. Explore over 10,000 square feet of Steelers history, rare artifacts, and interactive exhibits. Plan your visit today at Steelers.com/museum.
It's very difficult to minimize a player of his caliber. And it's you know, whether it's a receiver or whether it's a talented rusher like Aaron Donald or whether it's a talented veteran quarterback like Stafford, man, usually it's multiple things, and usually you're working to minimize as opposed to shut out. Significant players find a way to make plays. Week in and week out, people block TJ with 2 people, and week in and week out, TJ makes plays, for example.
Mike Tomlin talking there about Cooper Kupp, his return, and man, he didn't waste any time taking a lot of the emphasis away from Puka Nacua, who has been outstanding and set a record for the first 5 games in terms of receptions and yards for a first-year player. But you know what you're going to get with Cooper Kupp, and it's hard to figure out how to stop him, and I wonder how they will assign, defensive assignments here when it comes to this guy.
Yeah, and Coach was asked, about rookies, specifically Joey Porter Jr. maybe getting some more time, and said, that's the gradual process with first-year guys versus watching from the sideline and then being thrown into the fire. But I just think, Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp just have this connection. They have a podcast together, Dime and Nine, and I just think that they're one of those tandems that the Steelers are going to have to scheme against to try to not let various things like that happen on Sunday.
Yeah, and the danger is if you commit 2 people or over the top with him, and then they have other guys. We haven't even mentioned Higbee, their tight end, because he can do stuff over the middle. But I think you're right. It starts with Matt Stafford. He was injured last year. I thought their season started going south when he got injured. There were other injuries, and boy, that's a big part of every NFL team. But now that he's back, he seems to be healthy, and he's throwing the ball right on the money, and he did last week. It's strange last week, Missy, because in the first half of their game against Arizona, offensively they were terrible. You can say that about a lot of NFL teams this past week, but they had 5 yards rushing, and that's it, and 6 points. And then in the second half, Kyren Williams ends up with 151 yards in the second half. Then he got injured, which is also a key component, I think, of this matchup. He's not going to be there.
Yeah, and also his backup, but I do think they can run the ball. So it'll be interesting to see how they go in terms of their offensive game plan. Knowing heading into this matchup with the Steelers defense has had trouble stopping the run. So it will be interesting to see how they mix things up to keep the Steelers defense on their toes.
Yeah, it's a scheme running attack that's good. And again, this guy, Williams, was a 5th-round pick last year. We've seen a lot of 5th-round picks emerge as big-time players. And if you open holes and they do what they have to do discipline-wise, you can get those kind of results.
Yeah, and definitely not something you want to see for the Steelers defense. I think, they've had some splash plays here and there, but in terms of containment and different things like that, that's something you're going to want to see them take that next step as they head out in the bye week.
And that has been one of the problems with the Steelers, stopping the run, and they have to do a better job of it. And so this may be an opportunity to do that. So for the record, Williams ended up here with 158 yards, all of them, it seemed, in the second half of the game as they came back and beat Arizona. So they're 3-3, and they're a team that I think people came into the season thinking maybe they weren't going to be that good because they had traded away a lot of draft picks. They operate with a different philosophy, won a championship as a result of that. But here they are, and I think Sean McVay's coaching staff has a way of scheming things, and that's going to be one of the tests this week, is who out-schemes who.
Well, and I think, too, just going back to Sunday, being able to actually watch some football, from your couch with the Steelers on the bye, I don't think anybody would have picked the Browns to beat the 49ers.
No.
There were just crazy things that happened, and that is the NFL. Everybody says, anything can happen every week, but sometimes we see it in bunches, and it makes you really think about that.
Yeah, that was one of those, but if they make the kick at the end 41 yards, they win the game. But they didn't do that. There were a lot of things about that last drive that make you scratch your head, but the Cleveland Browns came away with a win. First loss for San Francisco. When we return, we'll talk about the defensive side of the LA Rams, and it starts with number 99. We'll get into that, what the Steelers must do to contain him, and make things available next, right here on Steeler Digital Platforms and KDK+.
Kenny's touchdown pass to George. Can you kind of take us through that play, all the pre-snap stuff that went into it from your standpoint?
Yeah, we had broke the huddle, had a play called. Kenny did it multiple times through it in this game. We had a cover zero plan, which we've always had. In that exact instance, the routes were kind of called in the huddle, but the protection had to change. So he came out, he saw it, he made the protection adjustment. George, the three guys stayed on what they had because they were the routes that they need, that worked in that point. You were pressed across the board. So Kenny did a great job, but again, he probably did that 3 or 4 times throughout the game, and everybody did a good job with that. So it worked out. Obviously you get to that point, the weighty situations of a game, they went, they got aggressive and really excited. Kenny saw it, really excited. The line did a great job and kept the tight end in, did that, and GP won his battle and did a good job, and it was a big play for us.
Matt, do you get a sense that Kenny's growing more and more comfortable making adjustments in those moments, and how much more comfortable are you letting him make those adjustments?
Yes, he's probably more comfortable because I think that comes with time. He's probably got a full season now if you add up the games, right? But we did that last year. I know he made those adjustments last year into that coverage, and the fluidity of it happening was clean. You guys are talking about the touchdown, but again, it happened multiple times in that game on Sunday, and he did it. And so confident with him and his ability to see it, confident with the other guys adjusting and not missing those adjustments as we work forward.
Matt, what were your thoughts on Broderick's first start, and what does he have to do to start to earn some more of those reps at left tackle? I know Dan was out.
Yeah, I think Broderick did a great job. Obviously, it's a experience in this league is real, right? You're playing against really good people, and I think he did a great job and accepted the challenge. We have great faith in his ability, really high on who he is as a guy.
Calling all football enthusiasts. Immerse yourself in the captivating world of the Steelers at the new Steelers Hall of Honor Museum located inside Acrisure Stadium. Explore over 10,000 square feet of history where interactive videos, music, and engaging exhibits await. Feel the thrill of the broadcast booth as you make your mark on a historic Steelers play call. Plus, get up close to the iconic Super Bowl rings, game-worn uniforms, and priceless artifacts. Plan your visit today at Steelers.com/museum.
Be wary of Aaron Donald and what he's capable of. I'm not going to get into the details of his resume. You know it. 3-time Player of the Year, 7-time first-team All-Pro. He needs no endorsement from me. We better do a good job of minimizing any additions to that resume in this stadium this weekend. And obviously you work your tail off to minimize his impact on the game, but I imagine that week in and week out, everyone does that, but he still does what he does.
And Aaron Donald may not have the numbers that you may have expected, but he's, long into his career now, but he has the same effect, and that means occupying people. And when he does that, other people are free to do it. It's sort of like the same thing about TJ Watt on this side of it, right? You have to game plan for somebody. You want to take away a strength. That's their strength on the defensive line. So whose assignment will that be? Because Mason Cole, all due respect, may need some help there.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to double team him and do different things. Like you said, guys know what they're doing when they face TJ Watt. There's a plan that goes into it. There's usually 2 guys, sometimes 3 guys hanging from him. But we still see what he's able to do, and that's how Aaron Donald's career has unfolded, like you said, in the latter portion of his career, but still somebody that you have to massively respect and acknowledge. And when he's on the field, you have to know it and have a plan.
Think about it. I remember him growing up. I'm sure you do too. Penn Hills. He didn't get many offers in college. Goes to Pitt. Wins just about every award. And man, it was almost like I remember talking to him a couple times. He said he operates with that chip on his shoulder, and he still uses that as motivation. But after all the things that Tomlin just talked about here, with 7-time first-team All-Pro, Defensive Player of the Year multiple times, I wonder what drives him now. Winning another championship. He's got one, and I know that was a big goal for him as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think it's probably, when you don't have one, you're chasing to get one, but then I'm sure once you have one, it's, I want to do it again. I want to feel that high, have that experience again. And obviously he believes in a lot of the parts that's probably part of this team, specifically Matthew Stafford and company. So, just, a local Pittsburgh guy, like you said, anytime I think about him, I just, the house in Penn Hills that they still have where they had the workout room that his dad created for them when they were younger, and something they still have, just to hold on to that and the hard work that went into getting him to where he is in his NFL career.
There are a couple of ex-Steelers on this roster as well. Akello Witherspoon is one of them, and he is really playing well. I kind of liken that to when he first came to Pittsburgh, Missy. He seemed to do extremely well and then kind of fade after that, but right now he's giving them a big boost.
Yeah, change of scenery might be good for him there, but yeah, he has been playing really well. Obviously, the Steelers know him well. He knows the Steelers offense. It's not like he was here a few years ago, very recently, so somebody they're familiar with and will have to keep a tally on.
And Kevin Dotson on the other side of the ball is over there as well, and he seems to be doing well if you look at some of the metric numbers there. So the Steelers made that move early in the season, and he's out there playing and playing at a pretty high level, I think, based on how he was not playing here. He was playing. He's turned it on there for sure.
Right. Well, they saw Kendrick Green in Houston before he got injured and that loss to the Texans. So familiar faces everywhere. It's just kind of how the NFL works. It's why during pregame you see different guys meeting up and afterwards as well.
Yeah, that should be a very interesting game. The Rams are 3-3, playing well, coming off a win against Arizona. The Steelers coming off a win against Baltimore. When we come back, we'll talk more about beyond this coming week. The Steelers have 3 home games. We'll also talk about the state of the AFC North because it is a logjam after all 3 teams in their Division 1 this week while the Steelers were off. We'll get into that next, right here, as we continue with the Mike Tomlin press conference brought to you by PNC Bank.
Gear up with game day necessities at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline gear, jerseys, terrible towels, memorabilia, and custom exclusives directly from the team. You can also gear up online at shop.steelers.com.
Bit of a conundrum now once Dan gets healthy, or
once Dan gets back, we're got to evaluate everything and do that. And Dan played well when he was in there, before the injury too. And you look at, he played against Nick Bosa, and he played against Myles Garrett, and he played against Max Crosby, and he's played. Put TJ in there, and that's your 4 best in the world. So the good thing is we got several guys that we're confident that can get in the game and play and not really lose much, from in terms of performance-wise. So.
The running game hasn't looked like what it did last year, the second half of last year. Is that because teams are defending or attacking the defense or offensive line differently?
We need to get better. There's no question. We need to get better. We need to continue to work it and look at every little detail and every little aspect of why we're not running it better. So we're going to just continue to do that, continue to grind. We're going to continue to run the ball. We're going to continue to run it more, and we just need to be more efficient. Everyone needs to be. We just need to be more productive in that. We continue to look, and that's a big focus of us right now. Is what do we need to do in terms of getting it to be better? So that's what we're working on right now.
You mentioned the gamut of great pass rushers you faced thus far. Do you look at the defense when you're looking at your line's production or how they've played? Do you take into account who they're playing against? Does that matter, or do you just expect them to go out there and be dominant?
We always expect them to go out and play their best, and obviously you play guys like that, you're going to scheme certain things, whether it be protection or runs, and scheming around those kind of players. You'd be foolish not to. So you're going to have to do that. There's no way we're going to leave people one-on-one versus elite guys, the whole game. But we're not going to do that. Other teams want to do that, great for them, but we're not going to do that. So, but you always expect them to go out and play their best. Not to say that you're going to dominate a certain guy in that. Just play the best of their ability, and play hard, play tough, and finish, and play with technique, and go out there and compete every day. And from what they've done.
Experience the legacy of the Steelers like never before. Step into the Steelers Hall of Honor Museum at Acrisure Stadium. Explore over 10,000 square feet of Steelers history, rare artifacts, and interactive exhibits. Plan your visit today at Steelers.com/museum.
We had 2 guys that are on IR that are now in the 21-day window for return, Deontay Johnson and Anthony McFarland. They'll be working in a variety of capacities at various appropriate levels. We'll let the quality of that participation and the amount of that participation, coupled with conditioning, being our guide in terms of activation or no this week. It's a week-to-week thing. You get a 21-day window, but you get opportunities at the end of the week. We'll be assessing those guys for inclusion or not. We got some guys who had lesser injuries who appear to be poised for various levels of participation as we prepare tomorrow. Guys in the offensive line like James Daniels and Dan Moore, tight end Pratt Firemouth, DeMarvin Leal, Presley Harvin. So we're excited about the relative health of our group.
So from that point of view, Missy, the bye week came at a good time. They needed help with a lot of those guys in terms of extending, and a week off makes a big difference. You look at the health situation there. If Deontay Johnson can play, that would be big. And certainly Firemouth gives them another big weapon that they haven't really utilized all that much. Of course, he's been out with his hamstring for a while.
Yeah, and Deontay Johnson said, earlier this week that he does feel like he's going to play. Now, again, that's not up to him, as we know how this works, but that is a good sign that he's eager and feels like he's good enough to go for Sunday. I think the good news, though, is that Coach Tomlin did not mention the three guys that he talked about immediately after the Ravens game. TJ Watt with that finger injury. Calvin Austin III was evaluated for a concussion. And also Larry Ogunjobi said he was dealing with something. So those three names weren't mentioned. So hopefully the bye week did them well as well.
A lot of people are looking at who starts. And again, it's Tuesday here right now, but you have two different positions that a lot of people scrutinize. Broderick Jones has played pretty well. When he first got in there, a little bit apprehensive. Now he seems to have played well, but Dan Moore is pushing him. So at this point, it's Moore. But again, health will determine who actually plays on Sunday.
I think at this point, why would you tip your hand to what you want to do until you know that Dan Moore can string together some practices where they feel like he is 100% or where they need him to be, if that's the route that they're going to go. If they thought Broderick, held his own and he could potentially, then maybe they'll be more slow in terms of getting Dan Moore back to work and at practice. So it will be interesting to see how that shakes out because, as you said, that's one of the position battles that a lot of people are going to be watching.
The other one is Joey Porter Jr. I do know this, even if he doesn't start, he's going to play a lot. He's deserved that based on how he's played, and I think Mike Tomlin has indicated that. What about this NFL? It's every year it's the same thing. You got 9 teams now with 3-3 records here. Seems like every team is battling, and it'll go right down to the wire like it always does with all these teams.
Yeah, both undefeated teams falling in week 6. I had to think about what week it was now during the Steelers bye week. So the Dolphins, they're safe. They can pop their champagne.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's ever going to change. Not the way this league is constructed.
No.
So you're going to have a whole bunch of champagne celebrations down there in Miami. Right now, their team, you talk about that, they're 5-1 and look almost unbeatable from an offensive point of view. They got a big game coming against Dallas Goedert and the Eagles this Sunday night. That's going to do it for us. For Missy Matthews and Bob Pompiani, we'll see you again next week for another edition of the Mike Tomlin Press Conference presented by PNC Bank. Have a nice day.